Hi, it's great to be here with you to talk about playfulness. Who doesn't like playfulness? When we think of playfulness, sometimes we consider children, playing in a sandpit. And as they play, they're building these beautiful sandcastles, or maybe not so beautiful sandcastles, but they're building, they're creating. They're bringing people around them who are also adding their piece to that beautiful puzzle that they're creating, and then they destroy it. They get a shovel, they kick it down, they change it, and in that process they learn. They learn through this creation, destruction, creative improvisation process. We were born with that birthright to play. So how are you playing with what you want to create? How are you playing with what needs to go? And how creative are you being in your moments with relationships? And how might you bring play into your life? In old Sanskrit, play was really understood as being a divine thing. So it's not just a trivial thing, it's actually exploring the divine within you, exploring the ideas that are yet to emerge, and at the same time doing it with a deep sense of love. So how are you bringing this divine idea of play into your working life and into your family life? We're all faced with opportunities that allow us to improvise. We've all seen jazz musicians riffing and playing in a way that they hadn't imagined before coming in, and that have us all transfixed, wondering what's going to come next. And we don't just see that joy in their faces, we see the joy in the faces of the other musicians as each one surprises the other in a different way of playing a tune. In that same sense, we can bring play into our relational space through this idea of improvised comedy. There's an exercise in improvised comedy called yes-anding. We've all come into a situation where we've thought, I'm not sure about what this person's saying, and we might decide to shut it down. We might decide to say that's your opinion, but it's not my opinion. But rather than doing that, you could also make a different decision and say, this person's idea is really different than mine, but interesting, and then add to that idea and add to someone else's idea. And while you're doing that, you're creating a culture of play. You're allowing for all of the wisdom to come out in that room, and you're really setting a tone for an unknown future, for potentiality. And it's a very simple exercise. You can even do it in your own mind as you're thinking about your future, rather than but, yes and. Another way to bring play into your life is to physically change the way you're moving and walking. There's a beautiful TED Talk that you can access by Amy Cuddy. It's wonderful because it starts to describe how what we embody turns us into who we're going to become. So how we physically move our body. She talks about being in a power pose, a Wonder Woman pose, before you go into a meeting, and how that changes the way you act in that meeting and the way you're perceived in that meeting. But equally, embodying new versions of ourselves that we want to be in playful ways can actually have some really significant impacts on our conscious awareness of who we're currently being and who we want to be. So if we think about the consciousness line of the Argonauts, where the unconscious bringing that unconscious into the conscious through movement. I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine wants to purchase some land. She wants to create a retreat space, and she's got all of these amazing ideas about it, and she knows it's her purpose. She's very clear about that. And she came to me and said, Tam, I'm blocked. I don't really know what I want to do with this, but there's this blockage. I know what I want to do, but there's this blockage. And I said, okay, well, what is the blockage? Because I really want to be a landowner. I want to own this space, but I don't feel like a landowner. And I asked her to walk like a landowner. And all of a sudden, she stood with her legs wide apart. She kind of looked like a 70-year-old man with a big cowboy hat. And she had this very old perception of what it might mean to be a landowner that was so different from who she was, that we just thought, why not play with that? Why not walk around like the kind of landowner that you think you'll become? And this might seem trivial to you, it might seem silly or childlike, but actually it's divine play. In these moments of changing the way she's moving, she's allowing herself the opportunity to become what she's envisioning, because the movement is reminding her brain that she's changing, and also reminding everyone around her that they could interact with her in different ways, that they can maybe work with her on this land project. They can do all these different things because they're embodying this new approach. So why don't you try that? Some yes-anding, and also try embodying what you want to become. Just try it out as you're walking to the shops or around the house and see what comes up for you. Enjoy.